Well, the market is getting hit by all types of uncertainty. Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon and welcome to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I'm your host, Bob Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, if you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. When you get there, there's a link at the top of the page. I think it says Get Help. And you can click through there and send in your emails, and I'll get you taken care of. If you need a phone call, we'll even do that just to make sure you get taken care of. It's all about providing a resource for you. And that's one of the problems, I think, is that there's a lack of resources out there financially for people to take advantage of. I know Crown, which we have Chuck Bentley on the program, who's the CEO of that ministry, worldwide ministry, is incredible at providing financial ministries to so many people. They're doing some great work over there. So we wanted to make sure that on our end that we can help you out as well. So make sure that you go and take advantage of the website, prudentmoney.com, and send us an email. Let us know what's going on and how we can help. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. So let's talk a little bit about what we're facing with the markets, and that is a lot of uncertainty. Markets just hate uncertainty. And I haven't really been talking much about this year for the same reason that I waited to do the webinar in February versus doing it in January, because I wanted to see things play out. I wanted to see things start to make sense. I wanted to see what connects, what doesn't connect, what doesn't make sense, what does make sense, the whole thing. And it's a very concerning picture is starting to come together. Let's start with the biggest word that is out there when it comes to the economy and what's happening with the economy, and that is confidence. And you either have a pessimistic consumer or a confident consumer, and it makes all the difference in the world. And once a consumer starts to lose confidence, there's when we start to have a problem. There's when they stop spending money, and the economy is like gas, runs on consumer spending. About 2/3 of, and in fact, for the first time, I heard the other day that a higher percentage, but I'm going to go with the percentage that I've always gone with. 2/3 of economic growth is due to the consumer spending money. So if they're not confident, they're not going to spend money. It's very, very simple. So this came out today, and of course this sent the markets down during from the morning hour into the afternoon. Consumers, this is the report, a consumer confidence report. Consumers grew more pessimistic about the economic outlook in February as worries brewed about a slowing economy and rising inflation. The Conference Board, which is I don't know if I want to call them a company, but an organization that goes out, looks at everything, and records the consumer confidence or lack of confidence for the last 12 months. The board's Consumer Confidence Index, which is what they run, slipped to 98.3 for the month, down nearly 7%. It's a big drop, and below the Dow Jones forecast for 102.3. And what's one of the things that you want to pay attention to if a economic indicator falls, you want to see what the economists were predicting. And if there's a big gap, that is somewhat of a problem, because it means that the economists are getting behind, and that's always a signal that things are deteriorating. So this was the lowest reading since June 2024 and the largest monthly drop since August 2021. Views of current labor market conditions weakened. Consumers became pessimistic about future business conditions and less optimistic about future income. And though most economic indicators reflect continued growth, the Conference Board gauge matches other recent surveys showing waning confidence as well. So this is not just their survey. They are getting the same message amongst other surveys. Last week, the University of Michigan reported a larger than expected, once again, watch for that theme, monthly decrease of nearly 10% in February, once again a big drop, while the 5-year inflation outlook among respondents hit its highest level since 1995. Now, those are some pretty concerning numbers. In the Conference Board survey, the decline came across age groups and income levels, along with the overall drop in confidence. The expectations index tumbled 9.3 points to a 72.9, reading the first time since June 2024 that the measure has fallen below the level consistent with recession. So this consumer confidence survey does not inspire a lot of confidence, and is showing what I think is pretty accurate is a slowly declining economy that's headed for a recession. Now, that brings up another problem, and I'll get to that here in just a minute, but I'll give you a preview, and it's called stagflation, but we'll get to that in a minute. Another thing that jumped out of the news to me actually today was investment guru, Wall Street legend, Warren Buffett. Mr. Buffett I think he's 90-something years old. And he had and I can't think of his name at the moment, he had a partner, a business partner that just passed away, and he was like 90-something as well. But Warren Buffett has a fund that in a stock that this is publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, and he holds an investor conference once a year, every February, and he talks about how the fund did. He talks about things that are concerning him, but he's not very big in broadly giving predictions or forecasts. He just says he equates it to his fund. If you can see what he's doing with his fund, you'll have a good idea as to is he confident about things, or is he pessimistic about things? And he has put this, and I'm not sure if this is over the last quarter. Well, it will definitely say it's over the last year for sure. He put 1/2 of his holdings, stocks, investments, whatever he's got in that fund, into cash and treasury bills. Now, no one who is positive and confident about what's coming down the road puts the half of one of the biggest investment funds out there in cash and treasury bills. Treasury bill is just another form of cash provided to you by the government. It works roughly the same thing. So that's not really good. He just kept some fundamental, foundational stocks that he likes. Everything else he sold and got out of the market. So I think that kind of goes along with the theme of what we're seeing, is that he only got halfway out. Obviously, it would be pretty drastic if he was seeing something to where he got all out. In fact, I don't know that he actually does go down to zero. I think he always keeps some stocks invested. So he's got his fund in 1/2 in cash and treasury bills, which is not a real positive. The number 3 issue is tariffs. And in order to make sure that you understand how tariffs work, let me give you an example. Let's say that you are an importer and you are selling your goods, you're selling your widget, let's just call it a widget, to American consumers. Well, if a tariff of 25% was placed on your products that you want to sell to consumers in the United States, then the government's going to slap a 25% tariff onto that widget and charge you 25% for the opportunity to sell the widget to American consumers. So what ends up happening is if it's a Chinese company that is importing to the United States and they're having to pay 25% to do so, they either increase their prices by 25% or they take the hit. Now, in these tariff situations, they either fight back with their own tariffs, and really, either way, it makes no difference. It causes inflation. It causes prices to go up because it's more expensive. And then you start going into supply and demand, a supply and demand problem, and then you go into inflation. So once again, these tariffs are something to keep an eye on because of the problems they can cause. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. This is Bob Brooks. You are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. We're up against a break. Stick around. I'll be right back. Hi, this is Bob Brooks. What is the single most important verse on stewardship? Well, you can find that verse in 2 books, word for word, Matthew 6:24 and Luke 16:13. No one can serve 2 masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Wow, what a powerful statement. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we talk stewardship and how to stay in a committed, surrendered stewardship relationship with God. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show weekdays at 3 p.m.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Hi, I'm Jan Markell, host of Understanding the Times. We're very excited to be a part of Bible School Radio. I hope you will join me Saturday, 10 a.m. for cutting-edge guests and the latest information to help you discern the truth, even the inconvenient truth. We'll help you understand our times and contend for the faith. That's Understanding the Times, Saturday at 10 a.m. right here on Bible School Radio or anytime at olivetreeviews.org.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. If you've got a question for me about anything we're talking about or discussing, please go to the website. And if you have a question about investments, about whether you feel like your investments are too risky, and I do answer these emails, really. So send in your questions. Be sure and make sure you're not sitting out there with questions that could easily be answered. So just go to the website, click Get Help, and we will help you out. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. Okay, so we're talking about tariffs. If you will recall, and the market responded on both ways. The market responded downwards when Donald Trump said, hey, we're slapping all these tariffs on Mexico and Canada. We'll just stick with those 2. The market went way down. And then he came back and said, well, I'm going to give them 30 days before we do it. And the market went up. See, this is this kind of up and down uncertainty with the hope that Mexico and Canada are going to walk away and do whatever Donald Trump wants them to do. And this is an interesting scenario that as I watch news come out, that you see President Trump doubling down on things like bringing Canada into the United States. And if you've seen any response about that from Canada, you know that that's not something that they want to do. And then really any of the countries he's wanting to bring in. But I get why he's doing. I totally get why he's doing it. At the same time, it makes me wonder if it's the most efficient way to do things. I don't know. I'm not in his shoes, nor would I want to be in his shoes. And that's no criticism. I'm just saying this could turn out really bad. And we really got to watch for it. So this is something that can cause both recession as well as inflation. So that brings us right into stagflation. So what is stagflation? Well, let me start with what deflation is first. Deflation is when prices go negative. When the CPI goes into negative territory, then we've got deflation. The last major deflation that we saw was in the Great Depression, and that was obviously not a very good time for this country. So I don't think we're looking at deflation, but I do think we're looking at stagflation. And stagflation is where you have a recession, which is a decline in economic growth, losses on an economy, and you have inflation taking prices up. Now, it doesn't sound like a great situation, but it's the best and worst of both. And listen, I don't tell you these things or go over these indicators and go over these news to create fear. I think there's a lot of things that you can do that you can weather the storm, which we'll be talking about. But you've got to know what you're up against and the possibilities. And these may be no big deal at all, but you definitely want to watch to make sure. The inflation numbers we've already, I think the inflation numbers are actually coming in a little bit. But we're seeing inflation start back up again. And it'd be easier if you could see this, but generally inflation goes in waves, up and down and up and down. That's exactly the type of pattern that you would see in the 70s and when inflation really took hold. In this particular pattern, we see it go up, go down, and then stop and go sideways. So there's a whole chunk of inflation, chunk being a technical word. I just didn't know another word to use, but chunk. A chunk, it keeps coming back to me. A chunk of inflation is still in the economy and is not going away. And so, not to get overly technical, but I think it's going to take a deep recession to get rid of that last bit of inflation. Then we'd be in a recession, technically, and then go from there. But what's concerning is that the number of people who could be laid off that work for the government. I get it. They're trimming. They're trimming overstaffed agencies. They're looking for corruption. All that. All of that actually is creating a lot of uncertainty for the market. But let's take a look at some of these numbers. The Trump White House and Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency have fired tens of thousands of federal workers so far. The job cuts could ultimately be the biggest in U.S. history. IBM laid off about 60,000 workers in 1993 and thought to be the largest corporate layoff. There are approximately 3 million federal workers. It says federal workers may struggle financially. Local economies such as Washington, D.C. may suffer a recession, though the impact of the broader U.S. economy may be minimal. Tough to know. It just depends. The million-dollar question is, what was the real economy like before all this started? If we had some strength, a foundation that was fairly stable, yeah, we could weather this. I'm just not so sure that that's the case, and not so sure that we're going to have that luxury. So the question is, will the economy absorb the job losses? And once again, confidence. Business owners, small business owners, what do you think they're doing right now, looking at the landscape of the economy, the landscape of what's going on with all this uncertainty? And they may doesn't have to be a federal job. They may start laying off. Small business owners may start laying people off. We're starting to see it a little bit build with corporations. It could definitely snowball into something. And once again, I don't say that to create fear. I say that as you need to know what's going on. So here is the numbers from the inflation, and I didn't even go over this when it happened because I wanted to do what we're doing today. Many commonly purchased goods and services got more expensive in January, driving inflation in the wrong direction and to its highest rate since June of last year. Consumer prices rose 0.5% from December, the fastest pace since August 2023, resulting in an annual inflation rate of 3% for the 12 months that ended in January. Eggs, the symbol for inflation these days, which are up 53% year over year, shot up 15.2% from December to January. That's the biggest monthly increase that index has seen since June 2015, when prices rocketed, I love the words they use, 18.3%. Grocery prices, near and dear to my heart, jumped 0.5% from December, the fastest they've risen on a monthly basis in more than 2 years. That's a little concerning. And eggs, I think, were a big part of that. Go figure, eggs taking such a bad rap. So economists look at a core index of CPI, Consumer Price Index, which takes out food and energy. But I know that sounds ridiculous, but there's a reason for it, as a way to gauge progress on underlying inflation, because food and energy are going to be volatile. But even the core moved higher in January. It jumped almost 0.5% on a monthly basis, bringing the annual rate up to 3.3%. Now get this, economists didn't think it was going to change at all. Here's an interesting side note. Denny's said Monday that it will put out a surcharge in place for meals with eggs as the restaurant chain deals with the ongoing bird flu. So that's interesting. And I'll probably only have time to finish on this. Let's see. This is President Trump. Interest rates should be lowered, something which would go hand in hand with upcoming tariffs. With all due respect, I just don't see how he's right. Nothing that I have ever come across, even in unusual situations, suggests that he's right about interest rates being lowered. And if that does happen, I don't think it's going to happen because I think the Federal Reserve Board is going to stay pretty tight on this. It could create massive amount of inflation. I've even gone back and researched, spent a lot of time researching, see if there's any way that that could be that he's right. I cannot find anything. So we'll see how the great big experiment takes place. Obviously, the economy is not a perfect system by any stretch. Politics definitely complicated. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see what's in store for us. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. You've been listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time. Keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.